Welcome to this episode of DDB Talks, our video series featuring the brightest minds, most interesting stories and tales of unexpected works from all around the world. I'm Lindsay Bennett. Today I'm joined by Ben Wolan, ECD for DDB San Francisco and the lead creative on one of our biggest clients globally, Miller Lite. We're here today to talk about just that actually, specifically the recent Lite bar for Miller Lite, a virtual bar built in the Metaverse, streaming the first ever Super Bowl ad in the Metaverse. So Ben, let's go back a few steps. How is the Super Bowl different from any other brief that you receive as a creative?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's definitely really different. I would say that the biggest difference is that first and foremost is that people actually care about advertising on that day. And I think that that's a good thing for everyone in our business to keep in mind, is that for the most part, people aren't trying to pay attention to whatever it is you're normally doing. But this is the one day where they actually are. And so it gives us different opportunities than we might have in a normal time. So that's, to me, that's the biggest thing. I think also, what comes with that is an immense amount of competition. Everyone's competing and trying to outdo the other brand, even brands outside their categories, to just sort of, be heard on this day that's got like lots and lots of, lots of buzz, lots of people talking. So it's highly, it's a big opportunity, but it's also highly competitive, I'd say.
Yeah, and Miller Lite is now synonymous with the Super Bowl, but not for the reason that you would think, because they don't actually appear in the Super Bowl. So what was the brief from Miller Lite, and how did you come up with the idea of, the first branded bar in the Metaverse?
Yeah, well, for the brief from Miller Lite, again, was unique for Miller Lite because you kind of throw, I think, a few of the things out of the window that you'd have in a normal brief, because the goal really is how do we get attention? How do we get people talking about us? And then hopefully reaching for us when they go to the store to get beer for the Super Bowl. But how do we get people talking about us in this sort of highly competitive time, especially when, to your point, Miller Lite and all of Molson Coors is shut out from the Super Bowl. They can't advertise there because of Anheuser-Busch and their agreement with the NFL. So what it means for us is we have to do something that sort of gets the unfair share of attention, and that usually leads us to different ideas around kind of hacking the Super Bowl, which I think is not necessarily anything new for an assignment. Obviously most brands aren't advertising in the Super Bowl. So you have to do something that either like pushes the boundaries or maybe takes advantage of conversation happening already in culture. And so that last thing is kind of what we wanted to do, which was, we knew the metaverse is something that I feel like the whole industry and the whole world has been talking about a lot for the last year, but especially the last 6 months. And so that was already a conversation happening, which is a great place to start. And then how do we sort of take advantage of that conversation and do something that's interesting and unique and still very on brand for Miller Lite. So that's kind of a bit of where we started. And yeah, we landed at the idea of, let's open the first branded bar in the Metaverse that hadn't been done yet. When we found that out, that was kind of exciting. To us, that wasn't enough to just open the bar, because lots of brands are doing things in the Metaverse already. It seems like a lot of brands are comfortable just stopping at like, oh, we just did this one thing. We opened something, or we had an experience. To us, it's the Super Bowl. It's not enough to do that. And the Super Bowl is known for really is commercials. So that's how we combined the idea of opening the first bar and then airing the first commercial in the Metaverse. So then it was sort of a two-pronged approach.
Yeah, it's I love that it wasn't just the bar. There was also the Super Bowl ad in the bar, which is also we'll put it in this video. But so many great puns in there, so many Easter eggs. It's just such a great piece of content. And I actually was talking to Keith Reinhardt this week, and he mentioned he sent you a lovely note.
He did.
I think that, his tick of approval shows just how it resonated widely and what a great piece of content or ad it was.
Welcome to the first big game ad in the Metaverse.
How's it a big game ad if it's not even in the same universe as the big game?
Well, relatable farmer, because we have a culturally relevant pop star. And majestic horses.
What do horses have to do with beer?
America! And to appeal to the masses, we added puppies, avocados from another country, aliens, a Miller Lite robot, explosions, overly dramatic music, and more talking animals.
Oh, this Miller Lite beer ocean tastes great!
And in a not-so-subtle attempt to get press, we'll launch this ad exclusively in the Metaverse.
Wait, where are we?
Well, it's just like reality, but with worse graphics. Oh yeah, don't forget an iconic tagline.
So, you decide on the concept, you decide you're going to build this thing in a place that is getting a lot of attention right now. Everything is about the metaverse. How do you go about building the bar? What platform do you pick? You pick Decentraland. What was the conversations around that?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I mean, I think first off, like, not everyone totally understands what the metaverse is. And then in varying degrees, that included us too. I mean, there were certain people on our team who were pretty, pretty experienced in it, and then there was other people like myself who really hadn't done much there before. So the metaverse is really, it's a series of virtual worlds, right? It's not one place or another. There's a lot of different metaverse that exist. Some of them are through gaming. Like Roblox, others are just through, like a VR experience. We did our Metalite bar in Decentraland, and the reason why we chose Decentraland is it's super low barrier, and so it's accessible just by a browser on your laptop, on your computer, and that's all you need. You can enter as a guest, or if you want a more full experience, you can tie your crypto wallet to Decentraland and then go in and have a more full experience. But that was really important because this is the Super Bowl. So this is the time when it's the widest audience possible that you're trying to reach and talk to. So we didn't want to do something that was like requiring a headset or downloading anything. So Decentraland is great. It's super easy for people to access, and pretty much an open world for us to build in. So it actually turned out to be, I think, a good choice for us.
Yeah. And how long did that build take? Take me through some of the technical side of things and who we worked with to bring it to life, and maybe some of the challenges. I know this is in kind of a new field for many of us.
Yeah. So we worked with a production company called Missing Pieces, who we've worked with before on Molson Coors, and then they in turn worked with several other production companies to sort of try to get this done. So they were kind of our main kind of point company to both build the bar in the metaverse as well as to create the commercial that would run there. And the building of the bar took about 4 weeks. I mean, honestly, the whole thing went incredibly fast. It was one of the craziest timelines I've ever had for really, like, from start to production. And so it was a huge push and huge effort by everyone on our team, but also Missing Pieces and Terra Zero and Golden, the different production companies that we worked with on this. So it was a crazy push right up to the edge. I mean, we were working on this, right up until the bar opened, and we were working on the spot, finishing it hours before it aired. So it was quite a feat of scheduling.
Yeah, I can imagine. And there was such incredible detail. I think that's what really surprised me, a vintage jukebox and a bar stage with digital instruments. Really, the detail made the experience pretty incredible. Yeah. It really took me back how, every little element was thought out.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was a really important part of this. And most important, first and foremost, because of the brand. So if you're doing something for a brand in any space, but something new like the metaverse especially, I think what we've seen, in Decentraland and in other metaverse, is that these branded experiences tend to feel very out of the box, and feel very kind of clean and perfect. And that's just not the Miller Lite brand. Miller Lite brand is, it's very analog. It's very real and human. And so those elements of the brand don't necessarily line up with what we've seen in the metaverse. So that was a big thing for us to kind of try to take something that had a lot of detail, that had like some patina to it, and some there's a little bit of scuff marks on the sides of the building, and like just all the little details that make it feel like your kind of neighborhood watering hole were really important, not just from a creative and aesthetic standpoint, but really because of for the brand, and that's what the brand stands for. And to take a really analog brand and bring it into an extremely digital world is already sort of jarring for people. So we wanted to make sure that like it still felt like Miller Lite.
Yeah, I think you make a good point. You don't want to fully embrace, just a new technology or platform for the sake of it. It has to be rooted in the brand strategy, right? So I think it made sense for Miller Lite. Maybe talk us through some of that strategy and how it ladders up to, what Miller Lite stands for and wants to connect with its consumers year round.
Yeah, I mean, Miller Lite, just from a brand tone perspective, we always talk about simple, self-aware, and honest. That's sort of like in every brief that we have. And then just more generally, from a strategic standpoint, we want to make sure that we're always sort of portraying, again, a lot of humanity, human experiences, and we want to show human connection. I mean, that sounds very much like every brand wants to show that, but when it comes to beer, that's actually a real thing, right? Like you get together with your friends and you drink beers. We want that to feel it's your good friends. It's not about having a party, a huge party or anything like that. That's not really what the brand stands for. And then like there's some product sort of like attributes that make their way into the brand too, of just like it's sort of like Miller Lite is a beer tasting beer. It's a very real and regular beer in the best possible way. And so we also we have that kind of as part of anything we do. So that's sort of all what's happening in the background. But then again, when you take it into something like the metaverse, you're in some ways contrasting that. And I think it can be a little bit like confusing for people at first to be like, well, what's this brand doing that stands for all this like real world connection doing in the metaverse? But that was kind of the whole point for us, was to like, can we create an experience that gets people to come and join who maybe wouldn't have come to Decentraland or to the metaverse, and then when they have that experience, can it feel as real as possible or relatable as possible? We even went as far as like we had this golden tap handle. So it was a tap at the bar, and if you pulled it, you could actually get real free beer for your Super Bowl party in real life. So we wanted to create the sort of connection between real life and the metaverse world, because that's what the brand should be doing in the metaverse.
Yeah, and for me, I was one of those people that you were wanting to bring onto the platform for the first time because I'd never been on Decentraland or really experienced, the metaverse in 2022, let's say. So what I loved was logging on and realizing there was so many people experiencing it for the first time and upside down and struggling to get around and, trying to learn how to navigate smoothly through a new environment. Tell me about, I'm sure you spent a lot of time on at the bar on Decentraland. What was the best thing you saw?
The best thing I saw was actually before we launched the bar. We noticed that people were waiting out front, and then after a while, like there was a pretty huge crowd standing out front of our bar waiting for it to open, and that sort of blew my mind. That people had heard about it through press. Mainly, and that were really interested in it and wanted to check it out and really were like standing there in a big group waiting out front like that. That really was quite amazing to me. I think that was my favorite part of it, honestly. I mean, inside the bar, it was fun to see, like you said, the different sort of more novice metaverse people, probably like you and me, standing there like looking around, checking things out with our pretty basic avatars. And then every once in a while, someone would come in the bar who was clearly like very much someone who'd spent time in this world, and they had all kinds of like crazy costuming, and the head on their avatar was something special, and they had collected a lot of stuff. So it was like you got to sort of see those two worlds collide a little bit, and so it kind of made for a lot of fun because I just kept watching like people with lizard heads whiz by me, and other people were like throwing money off the bar, and it was funny. It was just something I'd never seen before.
Yeah, I was very envious of some of the outfits in my very plain outfit, considering I didn't, have any funds to spend, set up, and saw some people really amazingly dressed. I was very envious of them. But
I was too. I managed to have an eye patch, which to me was
cool.
about as cool as I got. So
okay, that's cool. So what was the response from attendees? I'm sure, you had friends and family joining as well, and what were people saying about it? How do you think it was perceived?
I mean, I think it was perceived really well. I don't think that the idea here is that everyone will love it. That's not the point. And I think that's especially true of the Super Bowl. Like you're trying to do something that creates conversation. And so we definitely did that. Most of the feedback we heard was positive. There's definitely some people who are like, who are sort of anti-metaverse and were just like, why are you doing this? But the people who went loved it. I mean, we actually had the most successful branded event ever in Decentraland, and we actually crashed their servers a couple times of people trying to get into our bar. So it was, the experience itself was massive for the metaverse, and the quality of it was something that everyone kept coming back to, which you mentioned, of just like the detail. So people thought that was great. And then, from a press standpoint, it did really well. It got almost 1.5 billion earned impressions, which we had like a $200,000 budget. That's crazy. So in that way, very successful.
Yeah, that's great. And what about what you learned through the process? So obviously, one of the first major brands to really embrace this type of activation, and then you also had the ad inside the bar. I can imagine this was quite an eye-opening experience. So tell me about some things that were surprising, unexpected that you learned.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it was all learning for me, I guess. I think maybe most things that we work on, like you take one or two things away from it, but you sort of maybe done something similar before. This was like all brand new to me. So every single day was kind of a learning experience, especially about like how the metaverse works, what kind of interest people have in it. So there wasn't like a particular, like, here's the one thing I took away, but like the whole process was learning, and that in itself was kind of exciting. If you're going to go shoot a commercial and you've done that a lot, like it can be really fun and interesting and creative, but it isn't necessarily new. This was new every step of the way, and I think what I loved about that was it made our team and the client team and the production, like we all kind of just sort of held hands and like stepped through the process together, because we were all aware that it was very new to many of us, and so there was a little bit of like a more, I think, accepting vibe between all the different parties to go like, okay, like how are we going to figure this out? How are we going to do that? So that was sort of like, I don't know if it was the thing that I learned, but it was like I think my favorite takeaway from this thing was like the way we all worked together on this. It was great, and it was a big effort to do, and again, like I do give the clients a ton of credit. They did something that was really unexpected for them. They did something that they'd never done before, and they did it on the biggest stage for the Super Bowl. And that's not an easy thing for anyone, especially clients, to do. So it was pretty special.
Yeah, it takes a lot of bravery, which they are brave clients, which is great. Makes them great partners for us.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the two-pronged approach. So there's the bar and then there's the ad. And the ad has so many, as I said, Easter eggs and kind of puns, and really takes the piss a little bit of beer advertising and Super Bowl advertising. So tell me about how you came up with the script and the writing. Just the writing is brilliant. So tell me about that process.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was sort of the perfect combination of what the brand is about. So again, back to being self-aware. The brand is always trying to be self-aware. And so for me personally, and I think a lot of the creatives who work on this, that's also a kind of humor that we really like as well. So those two things match up really well. And that was a medium that we were maybe slightly more comfortable and experienced in, so we could really like perfect that and know what we were doing there. And so to us, it became really clear, like we're already kind of creating something that is meta. I don't mean metaverse, but it is meta in the sense that like we're putting a commercial into a different world. We're already kind of like in that space. So we were like, we should make the ultimate Super Bowl commercial, and we should do it in a way that's very self-aware. So that kind of led us down a path of, well, what makes a Super Bowl commercial? Is it, and then we're starting to talk about like all these different tropes that we see, right? Like we always see talking animals, we see celebrities, we see explosions and all these things. And the funny thing is we don't have the budget to do any of that stuff. And so it was this sort of a bit of a kind of a moment of realization where we're like, well, because we're in the metaverse and we're creating this whole experience in the metaverse, we can actually make this look like something from the metaverse, therefore animation. And so that allowed us to do all these things that we would never have been able to do, like talking animals and explosions and a fake celebrity, basically. So
yeah, no, I loved it. So to finish up on, through this experience, this will be a space that other agencies, other brands look to, and maybe even a case study of what to do, because it was a really successful activation. So what would you tell other agencies and brands looking to get involved in the metaverse, in Web3? What's some advice?
Yeah, I mean, my advice would be, don't let the technology lead you, actually. Let the brand lead you, and let what the brand stands for, or the communication you're trying to put out into the world lead the way. Because I think what we've seen up until this point, and what makes this special, is that a lot of, like I said, a lot of brands, they just go into a space and try to do something that makes sense for that space. And of course, you have to do that to some degree. But I think brands and agencies will be more successful if they really stay true to the brand they're working on. And then how does that express itself in this brand new world? That's always the better way to go. I mean, in some way, this is potentially like similar to advertising in the beginning of the internet, and you're going like, oh, you're using this internet. What's that? What's that about? What's that going to be like? So I think we're at the beginning of it. I think probably we'll look back at this in a few years and maybe even kind of laugh a little bit at like how basic or rudimentary this was. But for now, it's new and it's exciting. And I think that was part of the reason why we wanted to jump on this in this moment.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really strong advice to finish up on. So we'll leave it there, Ben, and congratulations on a really successful, innovative, creative campaign, and can't wait to see what you do next.
Thanks so much. Yeah, it's been great talking to you.
All right. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Okay. Bye.